Every morning, without fail, a man walked the same street with his pack of dogs. Neighbors grew curious. Who was he, and why so many? Some thought he was just eccentric, others whispered rumors. But when the truth behind his daily walks was finally revealed, it left everyone speechless. The sun had barely begun to rise when the familiar sound of footsteps echoed down the quiet street. Every morning, at the exact same hour, he appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, his coat pulled tight against the morning chill. But he was never alone. At his side marched a pack of dogs, their paws tapping in unison against the pavement. Neighbors peered through windows or paused on their porches, always catching the same sight. 6 German shepherds moved beside him, disciplined and focused, their leashes held firmly but gently in his hands. They didn't tug or bark, they walked as though they were trained soldiers, perfectly in step with their master. Day after day, rain or shine, the man followed the same route. He never stopped to chat, never broke his stride. To some, it was a comforting sight, the rhythm of routine. To others, it was a mystery. Why would someone dedicate every morning to this ritual? Who was he, and what secret kept him walking when the rest of the world was still asleep? Before long, the man and his dogs became a topic of conversation. At first, it was casual curiosity, neighbors waving politely as he passed, children pointing from behind garden fences. But as the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, whispers began to spread. Some insisted he must be a professional trainer. "Look at the discipline," one neighbor remarked. "No ordinary pet owner could manage that many dogs with such control." Others thought differently. "Maybe he's lonely," an elderly woman suggested softly. "Those dogs are his only company." Speculation grew bolder with each passing morning. People shared theories at cafes, in grocery lines, even during evening walks. "I heard he used to be in the military," someone said. "That explains the way the dogs march." Another scoffed. "Nonsense, he's probably just eccentric." But no matter the theory, one truth lingered. No one really knew. And the man never offered answers. He walked in silence, his eyes forward, his dogs perfectly aligned at his side, leaving behind only questions that deepened with every step. The dogs themselves drew just as much attention as the man. They weren't rowdy or distracted like most pets on a leash. Each German shepherd walked with purpose, heads held high, eyes forward, their stride measured and calm. It was as if they were following a command no one else could hear. Children pressed their faces against windows, marveling at the sight. "They look like soldiers," one boy whispered to his sister. Adults couldn't help but agree. The dogs didn't pull, didn't bark, didn't falter. Instead, they moved in perfect unison, their steps echoing the man's steady rhythm. Some wondered how he had trained them to be so synchronized. Others questioned why he would even need so many dogs in the first place. 6 loyal companions were unusual enough, but 6 that behaved like a disciplined unit? That was something extraordinary. Day after day, the mystery deepened. These weren't just pets out for a stroll. They seemed bound by something greater, a story that no one yet understood, but everyone longed to uncover. She had watched the man and his dogs countless times from her porch, but that day she decided to follow, at a distance, careful not to be seen. Her footsteps were soft against the pavement, her heart racing with every block. The man walked as he always did, steady pace, eyes forward, his pack of dogs perfectly aligned beside him. He didn't glance around, didn't pause to greet anyone, didn't even break stride when cars passed by. It was as though nothing in the world existed except his path and the dogs who followed. The neighbor expected him to head toward the park, or maybe circle back toward home. But instead, he continued down unfamiliar streets, far from the busy shops and houses. The dogs never wavered, their discipline unshaken. Her curiosity sharpened into unease. Where was he going? Why this route, so purposeful and precise? With every step, the sense grew stronger. This wasn't an ordinary morning walk. Something important waited at the end of the road. At last, the man slowed his pace. The neighbor, careful to remain unseen, ducked behind a hedge as he and the dogs turned down a narrow path few ever noticed. The air grew quieter here, the buzz of the neighborhood fading into a solemn stillness. At the end of the path stood a small, iron gate. Beyond it stretched rows of weathered stones, their inscriptions softened by time. It was a cemetery, silent, respectful, sacred. The man pushed the gate open, and the dogs followed without hesitation, their paws moving as if they understood exactly where they were. He led them to a particular spot, pausing before a cluster of headstones. Without a word, he stopped, and the dogs sat down instantly, forming a neat line at his side. Their eyes were steady, their posture calm, almost reverent. The neighbor's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just a walk. This was a ritual, carried out with precision and devotion. Whatever secret bound this man to his dogs, its roots lay deep in this place of remembrance. The man removed his hat and lowered his head. For a long moment, he stood silently before the graves, the morning light falling gently across the stone markers. His dogs remained still, their bodies tense yet calm, as if they, too, were paying their respects. Etched into the headstones were names: officers, soldiers, and loved ones long gone. Each one carried a story, and each one had once had a companion. The neighbor's eyes widened as realization struck. These dogs weren't random strays or ordinary adoptions. Each belonged to someone buried here. The man had taken them in after their owners passed away. While others might have turned them away, he gave them a home, honoring the bond they had shared. His morning walks weren't about exercise or routine. They were acts of remembrance. Every step, every disciplined stride, was a tribute to the lives once intertwined with these dogs. The secret was no longer a mystery. It was a legacy, one of loyalty, compassion, and love that refused to be forgotten. Word of the man's secret didn't stay hidden for long. The neighbor who had followed him shared what she had seen, and soon the entire community began to view him differently. No longer was he the mysterious figure with too many dogs. He was a guardian of memory, carrying the weight of love that others had left behind. People began to pause when he passed, not with suspicion, but with respect. Children whispered less and watched more, sensing the gravity in the way the dogs moved. Some neighbors even started leaving flowers near the cemetery gate, quiet gestures of support for the ritual they now understood. What once had been gossip turned into admiration. The man hadn't sought recognition, yet he had earned the town's deepest respect. His daily walks were no longer just a spectacle. They were symbols of loyalty, devotion, and a reminder that love endures even beyond loss. And as the community watched, they realized the truth. Sometimes heroes walk silently among us, disguised as ordinary men with extraordinary hearts. The man never changed his routine, even after the truth became known. Each morning, just as the sun began to rise, he walked the same path with his dogs at his side. He didn't speak of his reasons, didn't seek attention. His silence carried more weight than words ever could. For the dogs, the walks were more than habit. They were threads tying them to the people they had lost. And for the man, each step was a vow to honor those who could no longer walk with them. Together, they carried memories that would not be forgotten. The community often watched, quietly, humbled by the devotion. Some found themselves inspired, reminded that love isn't measured by grand gestures, but by the simple act of showing up, again and again, without fail. And so, his story became a legacy. A man, a pack of loyal dogs, and a walk that meant far more than anyone first imagined. Because sometimes, the most ordinary routines hide the most extraordinary truths.